6 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Beautiful looking Wednesday morning. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in. Robin, I know you and I have been to many different swearing-in ceremonies, and quite often the oath that is taken by those sworn into different offices is to defend the Constitution, right? And quite often in the course of doing a radio show, this comes up. How well are we... How well are our elected officials and our law enforcement personnel actually defending the Constitution? Do they even know what it is? I think part of that requires a responsibility on our part to know the Constitution, because I mean, really, how are you going to know that the person you elected is really truly defending the Constitution if you don't know it yourself? And it's not, I always think it's not that difficult. The Founding Fathers didn't really write a difficult document, but it is made difficult by many people, and they interpret things different ways. And anyway, I am not an expert, nevertheless, and maybe I need to be more of an expert. Hagan Smith might be, though. He's in the studio with his beautiful wife. Are you his wife? I'm sorry, ma'am. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bonnie. Okay, Bonnie's here. And he is here to talk. Let me tell you, but he is the National Liberty Alliance organizer for Marion County. And we're going to find out about the common law, grand jury, and the Bill of Rights. And it all comes to play. These documents were created so that we would have, a foundation by which we could be the nation that our founding fathers imagined it to be, and we don't always adhere to that. I think I heard the bell ring again.
Yes.
All right. Good morning, Hagan. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming in.
You bet.
So what is the National Liberty Alliance? What is that?
Well, the National Liberty Alliance is a organization that started out as the New York Committeemen. And then they realized that, the political process was not working the way it's supposed to. So it eventually, with all the interest that this fellow by the name of John Darish got in New York, he realized that people all over this country needed that check and balance against government corruption, because today people are very apathetic. They don't believe that their vote is really going to where they cast it. And that everything is being manipulated and controlled. So it did transcend from the New York Committeemen to the National Liberty Alliance to put the checks back in government. That's
great. That sounds very patriotic. Do you know what I often think? I often think when I take my car to a mechanic, I sure hope he has read that book on how to fix cars. When I go to a doctor, I sure hope he read that book on whatever his specialty is. When we elect people, we don't even ask them, did you study? I mean, do you know what the Bill of Rights says? We wouldn't even ask them that question.
That's right. And the thing about it is, most of them don't. If you ask a public officer about the Constitution, even a simple question, most of the time they'll just tell you, well, I'm not a constitutional expert. And you ask them, well, I don't really expect you to be an expert, although you should, because you swear an oath.
You're not
support.
kidding.
That's right.
Yeah.
Support and defend it. So, but what do you know about it? Have you ever read it? And some will say, well, yeah, I think I probably have somewhere along the line, but
imagine?
I don't remember any of it. It's like, well, here's a Constitution. Let me give you one, and I'm going to ask you to read it, and then compare what you do in your through your power as a public officer as to whether or not you have that power given to you by the people, because the power belongs to the people. And if we delegate a power to them, then they can do it. But if we haven't specifically delegated that authority, then they can't do it, and they don't realize that.
Okay, now I don't yet claim to know what the common law grand jury is, so I'm going to ask you that in just a minute. But one thing I want to point out that I think is insane is that news guys often will almost roll their eyes when somebody who is an expert on the Constitution brings up the unconstitutionality of a bill or of a proposal. They roll their eyes at it as if it just astounds me that you would have somebody in office that doesn't know the Constitution and then being defended by somebody who we've come to trust because they happen to do the NBC Nightly News or something like that. What are your thoughts on that when you watch that kind of stuff?
Well, it's manipulation of people's minds. It's to get them to believe that something is, I'll just say is, and is true, as opposed to that which is not. Because in America, The Founding Fathers, through the Constitution, set up a form of government that is a Republican form of government, not a democracy. Because in a democracy, the majority can take from you without your consent just by a majority vote. With our constitutional republic, they can't do that.
Right.
It's rule of law, ruled by law, or we're ruled by men who will take from you just because they have the power. Well, in the situation where government officers believe that we elect them to go and do whatever they do, either in the state legislatures or Congress, and because of that they're our representative and they can do whatever they think is best for us. Well, of course we know they don't do what they think is best for us, but that doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. The point is they only have certain powers delegated to them, and I'll give you an example. Congress has 20 powers delegated to them in Article 1, Section 8. The judiciary has 11 powers, and the president has 6. But we also know that they exercise tremendous power that they have never been granted. And the way they do it is through usurpation. They get people to believe that that it is a democracy, not a Republican form, where they have to stay within those limitations and restrictions of the Constitution. So, whenever they look and roll their eyes, that tells me that there's ignorance there.
Tell me about yourself, if you don't mind. And I want you to do this for the listeners. Have you ever run for office?
I did. I ran for governor of Pennsylvania against Lynn Swann, the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver, and Governor Rendell. And, of course, I was on the Constitution Party, and we know that third parties don't get a chance. However, the Constitution does authorize us and does give us that opportunity, but we're shut out by the two major parties. So party is destructive to freedom, and Washington warned us about that.
And who had no party?
That's right.
George Washington.
Right. Yeah. And he said, beware of the baneful effects of political party, because two parties will rise up and control until freedom is totally lost. So, are you ready for about myself?
I'm ready for about yourself.
All right.
Yes, sir.
I was born in Hazard, Kentucky, the Appalachian Mountains, a very poor and impoverished area. It was a struggle to just survive, but it made me strong. It gave me the character that I have today. I believed in freedom. I believed that once I got away from my parents, I would be free to exercise my freedom any way I want, as long as I don't harm anybody else. Of course, at that time, I didn't know how to express it that way. But when I got out there and I found out that the government is just doing anything it wants, you can't go about life yourself in any way you choose as long as you're not harming anybody else, because they interfere with it. You can't own anything in America. That was the thing that really brought me forward. So I began to study in around 1988. I began to study because I had to ask myself, if I can't own my home, and if I lose my job and can't pay for the home, they'll take it and sell it for the property tax.
Yeah, right.
So I'm absolutely against that. The property tax should not be.
Property taxes you're against. That's what, in other words, somebody who said, "What do you mean you can't own your own home?" That explains it when you say
it's feudalism.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Because, and we've had this before where. Yes. And I don't disagree. I do agree that the property tax makes you a renter, not an owner.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And if you can't pay it, they just arbitrarily take it and sell it to somebody else that will pay it.
Right.
And then you're left out in the street. And I've seen them put old ladies, 90 years plus, that either it's their property taxes or their medicine that'll keep them alive, and they just set them right out in the street. They could care less. I mean, certainly it breaks some people's hearts, but, that's not our system of government. The Constitution guarantees your right of private property. But these lawyers, I'll tell you what the problem is, and I'm going to come back to myself. The problem is lawyers are in control of everything, and they manipulate all three branches. We don't have three branches with separate and distinct powers.
Can I stop you there and ask you a question about that?
Yes.
If lawyers are controlling everything, is big money controlling them?
Probably. Most likely.
Because they're not doing it for free.
Yeah. I mean, how do we prove that? We can only look at things to see the way they are, because you will never have access to the IMF or any of these other things, Internal Revenue Service. You'll never have access to any of those things. They just won't give it. They sit there and they tell you, well, we don't have to. And it's true, they don't, because they're a private organization. They're not a government entity.
So one of the things that gets people elected that is troubling to us, Robin and I, to the listeners that we have, our listeners are pretty much, I'm guessing that they're agreeing with you for the most part right now. We know our listeners, and we've got the phone lit up too, by the way, so we'll take a few calls in just a minute. But I think the one thing that we've heard over and over again is that we are we're continually being manipulated by people who are being manipulated, the corrupted, in other words, by money.
Yes.
If I were listening to you running for governor, speaking just with the little bit I've heard already today, I would want to hear more. But chances are, because no money is coming your way to the Constitution Party or to any third party, you are not on my TV as often as the other guy. You're not on my radio as often as the other guy because you can't afford it.
That's right.
Yeah, but I don't understand why there's no grassroots movement with somebody like yourself.
Well, there actually is through the common law grand jury. The common law grand jury is a Fifth Amendment thing that's in there to protect us from that kind of abuse of government when they usurp their authority and injure us. Those are injuries. It is the right of the people to reform, alter, or abolish government and to institute new government, laying the foundation on the principles that the founders established to keep us free. But it's up to us. The Constitution is just paper and ink. It can't do anything on its own. It requires us. It's our law to the government. It requires us to pick it up, to learn it, to know it, and to force these government officers to stay within those powers. And the common law grand jury is that check put in the Bill of Rights, as Justice Scalia enumerated in U.S. versus Williams. It's put in there, and it tells them that this belongs strictly to the people. It's their check against you. And we have to exercise that check, and that's what the grand jury is. It's been in there since 1215, the Magna Carta, and came forward through all laws, including the United States. When the founders created this, they brought that law forward here, and we must pick that back up, because the lawyers, again, in 1946, they wrote out in the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure the word presentment, because the Fifth Amendment says no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime except on presentment or indictment of a grand jury. Well, they wrote out the word presentment because only the grand jury can do either a presentment or an indictment. It doesn't require the district attorney to bring forth a charge against someone, which is the indictment, because the presentment can be done by the grand jury, the 25, and they have the authority to investigate, to look at these issues, and if they hand down a true bill, then that person gets prosecuted according to the rule of law, not just the district attorney bringing forth. Right. And that's the check against, and it can go against people, government officials as well as people. It doesn't just one or the other.
For the listeners, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Hagan Smith. He's our guest this morning. His beautiful wife Bonnie is with him, and we're talking about the Constitution. We're talking about America. We're talking about corruption, and we're talking about the National Liberty Alliance. He is an organizer for that in Marion County. We're also talking about the common law grand jury, and if you know about that, then you're 2 steps ahead of me, because I wasn't familiar with that. 2 questions. Am I saying your name correctly?
Hagan Smith.
Hagan Smith. Okay. The other question is, what? And I hope this doesn't sound offensive in any way, but why are you here? What are you promoting something by coming on the radio here?
I am here. I don't sell anything. I only sell freedom, and that's free. I'm here on behalf of the people through the Magna Carta, through the Constitution of the United States, to let people know that you do have a remedy. The remedy is in the law, the rule of law. It's a peaceful solution to problems in this country. And if you can go to the grand jury and you can file your complaint with the common law grand jury, and they will investigate. And if charges are necessary, then they will bring them forth through a true bill. So this is an opportunity for people to say, hey, there is things wrong in America, and we can fix them, but only the people can fix them. Because if people wish to be ignorant and free, they wish for what never was and never will be. That's a quote from Thomas Jefferson.
Do you know, if you've ever done a radio show like Robin and I do, it's more fun to disagree with the guest. I'm not having fun. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. So thank you for coming in. We might have some listeners who disagree. I have a hard time believing that, though. But we have put out an invitation for people to come in and express their beliefs on the air with us.
Sure.
We can only allot like 25 minutes, which is what we have for you today. And we like this kind of talk. We like when somebody comes in just to stand up for what they believe in. Maybe we're not even aware of their particular issue. We had a young lady in here one time. We didn't agree with her. She was 17. we didn't agree with her, okay? But we definitely applauded her position, the fact that she had the guts to come in here and talk to us about something she felt adamant about, which was, in her case, preventing building over on the Rainbow River. She made some good points, though. And I think intelligent dialogue that you disagree with can often help you change your mind. Debate is always a good thing. Okay. Before I go to the phone, do you want to say anything else?
Well, just that America, I love this country. I love what the Founding Fathers bequeathed to us. I want to keep this country. I don't want us to lose our freedom, and I don't want us to lose our country. I want this country to remain the Republican form that's guaranteed in Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. I will fight to my death, in a peaceful manner, of course, to protect that. So anyone who has a disagreement with that, I respect that, and certainly I believe in intelligent dialogue as well. So, hit me hard.
Okay, and somebody's asking if you're an attorney. Are you an attorney?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's go to the phone here. Good morning. Thank you for being patient. You're on the air with Hagan Smith. Oh, you'll need the headphones. I'm sorry. Give him a second to put the headphones on. He hasn't put them on. I forgot to tell him.
Is your volume?
Okay, go ahead. You're on the air with Hagan.
Good morning, Mr. Smith. I totally agree with you, and there are so many things I'd like to discuss, but I would like to ask you how you feel about the courts and our politicians stating that they can now contribute any kind of or any amount of money they want to a campaign or to a person's campaign because it represents freedom of speech. I'm not very eloquent, and I have a hard time expressing myself and the ideas, but I definitely believe in our Constitution, and I also think that the fact that now there is no limit on the amount of money that can be thrown at a politician, by big business, it just astounds me. Let's say a local person could give $1,000. A bank or banks can contribute $200,000. Which entity are you going to be listening to more carefully than the other? And it's obvious the one that gave you $200,000.
Yeah, right.
This last presidential campaign, both candidates had a trust fund of over $1 billion, and all total throughout the country, I believe it was $10 billion spent on an election. I don't think that's very democratic, or is it very constitutional? And I just absolutely cannot believe which way our country is going. And the politicians are, my personal belief is the Republicans, Democrats are playing good cop, bad cop with the American people in this country. I'll hang up and listen to your reply, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. You touched on a lot of points there, but those points are very valid points. As far as the contributors to a campaign, the First Amendment does have free speech. But, I want to point out something. We the people in this country are supposed to learn the Constitution and know it. And I'll give you a quote from George Washington that makes that clear. He said, "Study the Constitution. Let it be taught in the homes, schools, churches, colleges, and synagogues. Preach it from the pulpit, and let it become the fundamental principle which all free governments are founded." Well, the courts have usurped their authority and began to interpret the Constitution. In the case of U.S. versus Williams, at 2 U.S. 304, 1795, the court ruled early on with John Jay on that court. They said that the Supreme Court does not have the power to interpret the Constitution because the one court will interpret it one way, another way, and another way until it's totally destroyed. And that's what has taken place today. We're looking to the courts to interpret the Constitution for us when it should be us doing it ourselves.
Right.
And that case went on and said that. They made it clear that only the people are the final arbiters of what the Constitution means. And if there's any question, refer to the original intent, not to the court. We're not doing that today. I know that cases like a New London, Connecticut case where on eminent domain, the court usurped their powers. They interpreted the Constitution as opposed to the statute, where the eminent domain was being used unjustly. Oh man!
And just to tell you something about that, we were relentless with that one. We didn't let that go with that one, but of course they won.
Yes,
they still got the land.
That's right. And then in the abortion case, they did the same thing, because the Bible and the Constitution, and our Constitution is based on the Bible. It's the biblical law that we must obey ourselves in order to have good government. And if we don't do that, then we don't have good men running for public office. I myself don't care how much money is put toward any candidate, and you're right, we've seen a lot of that. I will vote for a statesman over a political candidate with billions of dollars anytime. I will vote for the man who says, I'm about freedom. And it doesn't matter whether that man can win or not. I'm going to vote my conscience.
That's how I vote too. And so many times when I've expressed that on the air, somebody said, "Larry, you're tossing your vote to the one you think should win, and you're causing the guy who shouldn't win to win."
That's right.
That's what they always will say.
Yeah.
Can I ask you this? Are you new to the area?
I've been here about 3 years now.
3 years. Have you joined the local Constitution Party?
I don't belong to any party.
Okay.
Because of the Washington statement about the baneful effects of party.
Okay.
I realized that the Constitution Party was not about the Constitution. And I was the chairman in Pennsylvania for 2 years. But I left because I realized it was just as bad as the other two. Matter of fact, it's just a tool for the other two to use, as well as the Green Party and some of the other ones.
Were you with the Reform Party at any point?
No, never was with the Reform.
One of the good friends of the show is named Jim Penna, and I believe he's the local Constitution Party chairman or something. I'm not sure what his title would be.
I think I've met him, yes.
Have you met him?
Yeah.
So you have no intent of running for any office right now?
Not right now, I don't know. And I'm not doing these shows either for that purpose. I'm doing this for the purpose of a peaceful way back to freedom without, us having to have a civil war again. I mean, you see what's happening over there. What's the name of that country this morning? It's all over the news.
Ukraine,
yeah. The Ukrainian country. That's what's happening. I don't want to see that happen here.
Right.
And it's fast becoming that, because if you look at it, we now have a police state. And believe me, I have the utmost respect for police, okay? But, they're not operating according to their knowledge and according to what they're supposed to do. They're operating according to orders handed down to them.
Well, can you imagine this? Can you imagine the United States ever telling its people, you're going to be forced to buy health insurance, and if you don't buy health insurance, then we're going to give you a penalty at the end of the year. And then I will say to somebody who proposes this 2-3 years ago, whenever this was, when we were arguing this, and I said, well, wait a minute, you mean we can go to jail for not buying something we're being forced to buy? And the person on the other end of the phone said, no, you're not going to go to jail for that. Well, what would happen? Well, you have to pay the penalty. What if you don't pay the penalty? Well, then you go to jail.
Right.
Because you're contempt of court. Mm-hmm. So technically not going to jail because you didn't buy health insurance, but indirectly you are.
That's right. That's exactly right. And, Jefferson also warned us about the requirement of resistance to bad law. But here, you don't have to resist. Here, all you need with the grand jury is you go file a complaint with the common law grand jury. And the common law grand jury says, no, that's unconstitutional. You can't do that. So they hand down a no bill. The no bill says you can't prosecute this guy because he refuses Obamacare. You can't prosecute this guy because he won't send his kids to a school that's exercising Common Core. You can't prosecute this guy because he's being overtaxed. He has the right to resist overtaxation. He has the right to look at the records and see what you're doing with the money. But you're restricting that. You're trying to prevent it. You're passing statutes that restrict that freedom of information so people can't find out what these people are doing. What do bank robbers do? They hide. And what do they do when you catch them? Do they say, well, I only took a little bit of money, I'll give it back. I didn't take a whole lot, I'll give it back. That's the mindset, I think, of the government officials today. That, we can't tolerate that. And the grand jury is a peaceful solution to those problems, because the grand jury, when you file a complaint on that issue, will investigate. And if they've improperly spent the money, if they've taken gratuities from anybody in any manner, to influence the way that they vote on an issue, on a bill and so forth, they can be prosecuted, and they should be prosecuted. You can't prosecute them according to the Constitution under the speech and debate clause. But what they do is in reference to you, it injures you. If what they did injures you, you have a claim against them. So you can bring a claim against that person in a private capacity.
Doing the radio show, it's kind of like offering samples of food. We're only going to the listeners only get a little sample of what you're talking about. And I know you have no book to sell, and I know you're not running for office.
No.
Does the organization that you are you're the organizer for the National Liberty Alliance, do they have a website or anything we can tell the listeners about? Okay.
Yes, www.nationalliberty, nationallibertyalliance.org, all small case letters and all one word.
And do you engage in any public meetings locally around the Ocala, Marion County area?
Well, no, I have not yet. I did that in Pennsylvania. I did it quite often, and I think I'm going to be doing that because I want to question some of these public officers in front of their town hall meetings. I want to let people know what they're about by asking questions that puts them on the spot.
And I'm not trying to be rude, but because we're running out of time, do you want to give out contact information for yourself, a phone number?
Sure. If
somebody wants to invite you, we've got a lot of organizations out there that would probably love to have you talk to them.
Well, I would be happy to do that because of why I do this. My name is Hagan Smith. My phone number is 352-502-2060. My email address is hagansmith@yahoo.com. And I welcome everyone to get on board, to go to the National Liberty Alliance, read and learn for yourself because there's a wealth of information on there. Learn for yourself slowly. Don't try to do it too fast. And then join up as a jurist and let's take America back. Let's save this country for your children, your grandchildren, and all your posterity as well as yourself.
You're a well-spoken man. It was an honor to have you in the studio. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
I want you to know, sir and ma'am, that this was recorded as a video. Robin will put it up on Facebook. It'll be on YouTube by 2 this afternoon. And for the listeners, if what you just heard is interesting and you want to share it with somebody, that's where it will be about 2 o'clock, usually by the time we get it done. So thank you, Hagan Smith. Thank you for coming in. Bonnie Smith, thank you for coming in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you having me here. And I want to leave by saying, God bless America. He blessed it once. I believe he's going to bless it again.
I believe so, too. Good stuff. We'll take a little break and we'll be right back.
Save the date. On March 1st, Habitat for Humanity of Marion County will be hosting the first annual Strawberry and Crafts Festival. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. in historic downtown Ocala. Come and enjoy the handmade crafts, great food, free entertainment, and of course, all things strawberry. There's even a kids zone. So make plans to attend the first annual Strawberry and Crafts Show, March 1st, downtown Ocala. It's great fun and a great cause. Habitat